Welcome, everyone, to the Black and White History Podcast. I'm your host, Christian.
Oh, yeah. Again, you never tell me that I have to I'm Jordan.
Yeah.
And this is episode
3, right? Yeah.
3.
We're talking about, probably been very interested, actually, because I'll be able to dive deeper into this man, I think.
Horatio Gates.
You're right. Yeah. You stole my joke. I was going to say Franklin Pierce.
Dang it. No.
I had it in my head, just this whole monologue of one of the most brilliant, famous men. The person who really kept our country together.
Really underrated in history. Yeah. Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Hopefully we'll get to him. Yeah. We might speed track to get into some more memorable guys
later on. Grover Cleveland.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to talk about George Washington. I think. Obviously, probably one of the most famous men in just the history of the entire world. Yeah, I would say. Yeah. And he didn't start out that way.
No, somewhat obscure. I don't know. You can't really even say humble beginnings. Humble-ish. He wasn't highfalutin.
He kind of got humble in the end of his life.
Yeah.
More, so
yeah, he had a cool arc. His story arc was cool. So,
do you think he's the greatest president you ever had?
No, not the greatest. I think he
top 3.
Oh yeah, definitely,
okay.
Definitely top 3. Is he the greatest president? It's hard to say because he kind of defined what president is, and so since
by default,
by default. So he was a great man. He was a great leader. So general. But when you define what the role is and everyone is kind of measured as a benchmark against that, he was definitely uncommon and uncommon throughout history as far as military leaders who rise to civil power. So I think he's kind of in a class of his own. It's George Washington, and then everyone else is who's the greatest who's the greatest president, who held the office that he kind of created, who holds that up as best as they can compared to him. So he's not the best president as far as what a president does and how a president can use their power to lead the nation and this, that, and the other. I would say he's not the greatest president, but as far as national leader, yeah, he's the greatest national leader.
We'll have to do a tier list or something.
Washington is S tier.
Yeah.
Adams is A.
Aliens what was the Alien
and Sedition Act?
Yeah.
That was Adams.
Yeah. Give him A for...
Man, that little guy tried. He really tried. He said, hey, don't talk bad about the country. Don't, no.
Okay, well, I think we're jumping ahead. That's next week's episode.
Yeah, it's hard. It was hard because you think of Adams, now you started me on it. The Boston Tea Party, he's no, we have to stand up for the rule of law and justice and this, that, and the other. And then, we look back on it and they barely had the Constitution when he was president. Mm-hmm. And so they're sort of just shooting in the dark as to what is constitutional and what's not. So looking at it 250 years ago or 250 years later, we're absolutely not. You can't just do that. That's not illegal. That goes against the First Amendment. But we've had 250 years of figuring out what that even means to say, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. Although objectively, that's probably it's probably not a good move to be you can't talk bad about the president. We're not kings and we're not royalty, but if you talk bad about us, you will go to prison. I was all right.
Yeah, the king thing, that's interesting to me because that was such a big debate when they're trying to figure out what the president should be. Yeah. And should we be a monarchy? Should we? And I know a lot of the founding fathers and stuff, they were very educated specifically with the Bible and everything, and just the idea of kings and how, you go to Old Testament with King Saul and the people that Israel stuff oh, we want a king. God's no, that's a terrible idea. Well, we want one anyway. Okay, fine, here's King Saul and everything, and then David and everything comes crashing down, and Solomon, it never works. And so they had that in mind when they were trying to figure out okay, here we go, it's a fresh start, we're not a part of Britain anymore, do we want to go back to a monarchy? And I could see the appeal in terms of with the character of George Washington wanting to be okay, yeah, I would feel good about George Washington being king.
Yeah, if you had to pick a king.
Yeah. But the whole point is like, well, he's not going to be here that long. So, having that kind of a foresight.
And all his kids are dead, so
right.
So who's going to be king next?
Right. Yeah,
John Adams.
Oh yeah, and then it would have already.
See, we couldn't have had a king. We really knew. What, Jefferson? Oh no.
Yeah. But yeah, so George Washington, obviously, I think the French Indian War was kind of his big rise to fame, infamy, basically. So, from my understanding of it, well, even backing up even before that, actually. So he's
Plymouth Rock.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So obviously we had a lot of Virginia presidents. So he's born in Westmoreland County, Virginia, and he becomes a colonel for the Brit side, because obviously this is like even Revolutionary War and everything. And there's this huge outbreak that happens that he basically, what I'm trying to say is he kind of starts an entire war kind of by accident.
Yeah, definitely. He was really ambitious. He wanted to get a commission from the British Army to be a general. So he, how like in the last couple episodes we talked about how like in that time, more so then than now, but like personal glory and personal pride, like getting a commission and being a general, like the social status that came with being a general was like highly sought after. Like that's what you are. He's a British gentleman, an officer, and a gentleman, and he wanted that too, and he did really well as like a junior officer, like a colonel, a captain.
Yeah, so he was appointed a major and commander.
Yeah,
when he was 21, which is like
that's pretty
insane.
Young. That's pretty young.
Yeah.
So he did well. He was a good soldier. He was in the militia in Virginia, and then kind of rose through the ranks and demonstrated his quality. And then, this is your big break, man. It's. I think it was trying to like escort a dignitary or like trying to ambush someone.
Yeah. So the Ohio Valley. What I have it written down here. Ohio River Valley. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he gets appointed to basically try to steer all the French away. Mm-hmm. So it's like Ohio's not like a state yet, but it's just kind of like this wannabe territory kind of. And the French are building this war, and there's obviously like everyone's coming to the new land. Okay, what do we got? We got this country wanting it, and the other country wanting a piece of it and stuff. And so he gets told to like, hey, get these people out of here, so we can, take control of and build this fort and everything, basically. And so he gets a bunch of Native Americans on his side to go down there. And that's kind of the interesting thing. I don't know why it's called the French Indian War. It doesn't really make any sense to me.
Yeah, because like it was the British versus the French.
And the Indians were just kind of like on both sides.
Yeah.
Like, Yeah. So a lot of people call it the 7 Years War. But it's probably
more inclusive.
Yeah.
Like in the actual definition.
Yeah.
Yeah. It includes all the people who are involved and not just French and Indian.
Yeah, we don't want to discriminate.
I mean, not yet.
Yeah. So he gets appointed to basically chase them all off. And this huge, it was kind of I don't really know exactly what happened in the moment, but
wasn't it like
someone shot first? It was one of those things.
Yeah.
And you won't really know.
It was George Washington.
Yeah, it could be. It was like an ambush, basically.
Yeah.
So he has them circled around, and this huge fight breaks out. And like in the midst of it, a dozen or so people died. They captured a bunch of others. And one of the French commanders, basically, Joseph, I'm not going to try to pronounce all these like French names, but Joseph Coulon basically is the shortened version of it.
Joe Frenchy Pants.
Yeah.
He is our greatest general.
He had this treaty with him, or like some ceasefire document he was going to give George Washington, but George didn't know that because they just went and attacked the entire camp.
He'll be a general for sure.
Right. And as he's talking to this guy about it, he speaks French, so he doesn't, he needs like an interpreter to help him. But while they're trying to like figure that out right after this battle, this Native American, Tanner Grisson, who's like this big chief, basically, like in the tribe that George has with him, goes up and just kills him and just stabs him right in the back of the head and kills him right on the spot. Right as George is like, oh wait, should we not have, and then he just like kills him basically. And so that basically starts like the whole war in a sense. Not saying it probably would look like it wasn't, things were going south anyway, but he at least accelerated it into full gear.
Axing a French diplomat in the back of the head probably did not help the temperature of the negotiations.
Right. So George goes back and he gets basically like demoted like pretty severely and everything.
George, we just want you to do this. It's a simple mission. It's really easy. You're going to get a lot of fame out of this. Oh, everyone's dead.
Right. He comes back. Hey, how'd it go? Well,
a lot of moves were made. Mistakes also were made. Please don't kill me. No, you're not killed. You're just fired. You're just almost fired, not totally fired, because you still are a good soldier. You're a good leader. But
well, that's the thing. It's like,
but that was bad. That was a bad one, George.
Yeah. Well, and being so young. And he was ranking up really quick. He was only like serving for a couple years and everything. So you can kind of see the mismanagement, like just how quickly he was like ranking up, probably way more advanced than he was ready for.
So
I don't know. Not trying to like. We're obviously Team George, but
we're Team George. That was a bad one.
Yeah,
that's a bad one.
Still admit it.
That was a bad one. You know, this is a common theme for George. Like, he's just good enough to not get fired, but definitely not good enough to ever like win outright. And it's interesting because we think of like the hero, like a great hero, like a Napoleon or a Caesar or a Alexander the Great, of like, he's the guy, he's the leader, and nothing happens unless he does it. And George Washington is like, not bumbling. He's not an idiot. He just sort of is a victim of circumstance in a lot of ways. Like, he's a young officer. He wants to do well.
Well, he was lost his dad when he was 11.
Yeah.
So, and he was basically, he inherited his entire estate. So it's kind of, he was just already having to figure everything out.
Yeah, he had an older brother, but his older brother was so much older. He was already kind of established, and so he's just like a year. He's just behind. He's behind the curve, but is good enough to be promoted. He's good enough to be competent, but not good enough to be like the guy who pulls through and always wins. He's just good enough to keep going to the next step. It's not quite failing upwards, because he wasn't consistently bad. He just wasn't ever consistently like. But then again, I don't know, because the colonists were like, he's the guy.
Well, and I think he really redeemed himself at the end of the war. Kind of, he actually helped end it.
Yeah, everyone really forgot how much they hated him.
Yeah.
Winning covers a multitude of sins.
That's true.
Because they were trying to...
It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah, exactly. They were trying to get him out. They were trying to replace him. Like, this guy sucks. People are mutinying. They're trying to leave. He's making promises to pay people, doesn't have money, all this stuff. And then it's just like a decisive victory. And like, yeah, of course, we always believe in you, George. We knew that you would do this. Forget about the time we didn't send you guys shoes for 2 years. You know, we believe in you. So he's a complex figure. Like, I think especially in like ancient history, where like the accounts are not like super contemporary, like people wrote about them more after the fact. But George Washington, like, we have letters and stuff from him and about him from his peers, like at the time these things were happening. So we had a good idea of like what people thought about him in general at the time, people above, below, and next to him. Like, he was a complicated guy. He was never hated. He's complex. Generally well thought of. People liked him. They wanted him to do well. They just wanted results. And he wasn't giving them massive wins during the Revolutionary War. But by God, he held it together. He got him over the finish line. Rumbling, bumbling, stumbling. Right over that finish line. And with the French, you know.
Sure. So, and I forgot to add also, there's a transcript written about the events that happened and about him starting him being responsible basically for it, which he signed, but it's in French and he doesn't realize what he's signing. And so this gets out. So that was kind of the big like.
Oh, well, that'll do it. Yeah.
So then as the war goes on, there's this general at the Pennsylvania frontier in this battle that gets like heavily wounded and just like on the spot George gets promoted again, basically. And so he's had a couple of years to, let's just say, reflect and
let the heat die down.
Yeah. And so he starts really building his own craft and everything. Like we've said before, he's not a good tactician, but as far as like a leader, that's really what he excels best at. And so he works himself up to being a colonel, and that's when he really starts developing a better reputation of just discipline and strong leadership. And he contributes to ending the war with the British, beating the French. And unfortunately, though, he doesn't really receive any credit. And
Foreshadowing.
So, right, yeah.
Foreshadowing.
So, which causes him to resign in 1758. I guess maybe we should have started with this instead of the Revolutionary War.
No, the Revolutionary War is awesome. And, but yeah, he really wanted that commission. They just would not give it to him. And fine, I quit.
Yeah. So that is what leads him to joining the colonists and everything with the Revolutionary War.
Sure, I started the war, but I also finished it. So
yeah. And yeah, so he moves on and is obviously with the colonists and everything. We talked a bunch about the Revolution and just all the, I guess, growing pains with that.
Can we talk about Martha?
Yeah, so he gets married. So that's his wife. She was widowed, and he marries her, and basically, like, obviously very wealthy widow.
Yeah, the Washingtons were like upper middle class as far as like farmers went, but I can't remember Martha's maiden name, but like their family were like upper crust. They were wealthy, and there's a nasty, nasty slander out there that I discovered that I did not like.
Okay.
That George Washington didn't love Martha and didn't think she was pretty. And I don't think that's true. I think George Washington, like she was shorter. She was a plumper woman. That's fine. She was a Southern belle for sure. And I think that George loved good old Martha. He wrote her letters all the time. And okay, he was away at war, but she would come and visit him and he would go and visit her. And so like if there's ever an excuse to like not visit your wife or not have your wife around because you don't actually like her, it's because, oh, sorry, honey, I'm at war. I can't see you. Whatever. No, he loved Martha. He thought she was pretty. And that's that. He did have a crush that he tried to...
Sorry, now the truth starts
he did have a crush that he wrote to when he was younger, like 18, 19, 20, whatever, that he wrote to. And she said, oh, no, let's just be friends. He got friend zoned. And then, like, after he was president, he became president. So, like, 30 years later, he did also write her again because she had moved from the colonies back home to England, to Britain. And so he wrote her and said, oh, be nice to see you again. And,
okay.
And she said, no. He said, oh, well, that's fine. But he did love Martha. He's just, come on, he started a whole country. Like, let him.
Yeah, I mean, they were very well off together.
Yeah. They had a good old time.
Yeah. And so he, marries her and gets, is a part of her whole plantation at Mount Vernon and everything. So that's kind of where all that starts. And so basically, he resigns and then from the British and then just is basically just a farmer up until the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
And it's funny. He's kind of someone who's like, okay, I'm done now. I'm just going to live my life. And then something brings him out of retirement, whether he wants to or not.
It's true. Poor George. He really just wanted to be a tobacco farmer.
Yeah.
and they just wouldn't let him live.
Yeah. So obviously, Revolutionary War happens.
Blah blah blah. Some stuff happens.
Yeah. Watch our first 2 episodes about that.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, so obviously we win, and he then
suck it, Cornwallis.
He goes to retire, but they convince him to come out of retirement to literally be the president of the United States.
Yeah, which they didn't call it the president. They didn't know what to call it at that point. They were trying to like you said at the beginning, they were trying to figure out like, do we want another monarchy? And then Thomas Jefferson was like, no monarchy. And then James Madison was like, well, kind of a monarchy, but we should have a big government. And then Thomas Jefferson again was like, no. And so they weren't really sure what to do. So they kind of came up with and George Washington had some thoughts on it as well. I think one of the things was he wasn't a military leader at this point. So like he was a civil leader, like a regular person. So he didn't wear his uniform in as president. He didn't like a monarchy. He didn't want to be a king.
Well, yeah, I think the term president was even picked because it was so like lowly.
Yeah, it's
you know, because
like
it was like the same. That's the term that was used for if it was like the president, like a bowling club.
Yeah,
or a president, you know, something like that. And so it's like the whole idea was like, okay, the president. It's more about the people than it is about the leader. And so that's why, you know, he really was the president, you know, like him basically just inventing.
Yeah. Kind of out of thin air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, most of the, like, I don't think at this point there was another sort of Republican style of government.
No, there wasn't. And this is kind of why it was like truly like an experiment. And yeah, it being a republic. Which, first off, okay, I want to know what is your opinion on like the whole we're a republic, no, we're a democracy?
It's mostly semantic. There are different definitions, like the Greek democracy of like direct democracy of each person gets a vote and whatever the majority, like 51%, whatever 51% of people decide to do, that's what we do. Like clearly we're not that. We are a republic because we elect representatives to go to Congress and they argue amongst themselves about what to do. But it's like a filter of like Uncle Joe's ideas like could catch steam in this town, and it's like, hey, we should take Jim Bob's cattle and we're gonna get the town together, and the town is 18 people and I'm related to 12 of them. And so we all vote to take Jim Bob's cows. Like that's democracy, but that doesn't work. But like a republic is there's a buffer zone where the people get a voice, like they all get to talk about what they want. But then when it actually comes to make the decisions, like there's rules and protections for the minority group versus the majority group. You can't just take over. So it's like a convenient way because as far as like the people are concerned, they vote and everyone votes. And in that way, it's a democracy. I think it's sort of like how people who know about guns, they call the magazines and get upset when people call them clips because it's a different thing. It's not a clip, it's a magazine. It's like, well, we know what you mean, but it is technically wrong. So, I mean, I can see a case for like the dumbing down of people where if you just call it a democracy and then tell people what a democracy is supposed to be and then never tell them what a republic is
right.
and what the point of it is, then you can kind of slip stuff in and do weird stuff because the people aren't educated on what kind of government they have. I can see that case. You can kind of see where people would get more stuck on like, no, we're not actually a democracy. So I do get that. If someone really doesn't know and says like, oh, we're a democracy, so we all voted on it. It's like, well, that's a democracy is what, 2 wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. Like that's democracy, but obviously it's very dangerous. So, well, it can be.
Sure. Okay.
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
That's a long-winded answer to your question.
We'll get more into that in the Constitution. So, yeah. So I didn't realize this. For some reason, I always thought that George Washington. Let's see. How do I say this? There was no campaigning or anything during the presidency.
No,
which is really weird for me to discover.
No, he didn't ask to be president.
Well, and it wasn't even just about that, but it's like you campaigning and trying to get people to vote for you was like seen as like such a negative thing.
Yeah,
like it drove people away because of how like they wanted the idea of like running for president and like they're very humble and they're so of course they're not going to campaign because they wouldn't put themselves in a position of trying to.
It's unseemly,
right? And so it's hilarious to me that it's like he didn't even really want to be president, didn't really campaign on it, and then here he
chose anyways.
Yeah, which I mean, obviously, if he really didn't want to, he wouldn't have done it. So it's not like he was completely strong-armed into doing it. He did what was necessary for the country and everything.
Well, because who's gonna take charge if not him?
Yeah,
John Adams.
Yeah, Ben
Franklin. He spent the whole war drunk in France.
Yeah,
no, it's got to be George.
Yeah,
or what? Horatio Gates? No.
Yeah, I don't know who would have been the first president if it wasn't. I mean, I guess it would have been John Adams.
Probably Adams.
I mean, he was the vice president.
Or Madison.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, because Madison was a Federalist. We're getting into the weeds. Madison was a Federalist, and so that wasn't because Jefferson and Madison were very opinionated and very opposite. So they were very polarizing figures. Washington wasn't like a politician.
Right.
So he didn't have like everyone knew who Washington was, and everyone like his ideas of governance were just like, hey, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna win, and we're gonna, you know, it's like head coach, like, hey, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna kick him in the teeth, we're gonna win, and we're doing it for America. Like, this is the cause. We're doing it for the cause. And he didn't have like a political agenda, like, and the farmers should also, but the city should not, and the federal government and the state government. Like, he didn't have. I'm sure he had those ideas, and they developed, but that wasn't what he was known for. So it was really easy to support him versus an Adams or a Madison or a Jefferson or anyone else, because they had political ideas, and everyone had spent the entire war listening to their ideas about what government should and shouldn't do, and blah 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 blah. Washington went out there, he got stuff done. People knew who he was. He had a good reputation. I mean, I don't think if anyone besides Washington had been the first president, I think it wouldn't have worked.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
This is my opinion. I don't know if that's why, but that's what it seems to me like.
No, they definitely knew what they had.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't a coincidence that, well, George is here. Like, no, it was like, you have to be the one.
Yeah, you have to do this. This isn't going to work if someone else does it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting, like, the way his views even changed from throughout his whole life into, like I said, with him being, like, such a staunch, like, oh, I'm this commander and I'm just going to go through and, like, you know, to where, you know, ending his life, but like near the end of his life. Sorry,
this is some revisionist history.
Yeah, right.
Miss Honorable Sepulchre in Monticello.
Near the end of his life, changing his views on just like I mean structure with like even just like foreign policy and like how do we figure all this out, and just like even like the slave thing, because you know obviously he was a slave owner. He had been a slave owner since he was 11, so he had been like basically just indoctrinated into like this is the system we have, and this is what, and so for him to like post-revolutionary war start to change his mind on that is you mentioned it earlier before we started recording, but like very progressive in itself. Yeah,
him and we'll get to it more, I'm sure, when we get to him as president, but Jefferson too. Both like prolific slave owners were not. They did not advocate for the abolition of slavery while they were like in a position to potentially do so. Like they didn't free their own slaves while they were alive. They like that was what happened. But like they were definitely men of their time, and they knew it would be like banning all fossil fuels. It's just not a thing that anyone like, guys, fossil fuels are really bad, like existentially bad. We really can't do it. And it's like, it doesn't matter what argument you make about it. It's so ingrained in how the country, the whole world works to say we're not doing it. At that point in history, like the country just barely started to come together as a United States, and to say, okay, now we're blowing up the thing that is the foundation of it. Like it would not have worked. And they knew that it wouldn't have worked. And they knew that like, if they were to have done it even while they were alive, it would have like created this rift of like, well, Washington did this, and don't you like George Washington? Well, Jefferson said this, but then he said this, and like it would have created like a very deep, painful rift in the country, so deep that it would have destroyed the country. And like we're fast forwarding 100 years, but like it was 100 years before, roughly, give or take, like 100 years before Lincoln had the country together to such a point where we could finally say, we're not doing this anymore, and then we're going to have a war about it, but we have a national identity that is strong enough to withstand something so catastrophic as a civil war and actually reconstruct and stay together. Like that would not have happened. I think they knew it wouldn't have happened if they did that. And they both were like not at the end of their lives. Jefferson kind of in the middle of his life to the end was like, slavery is not good. We realize like all men are created equal. This whole Bill of Rights thing, not applying to black people or women, mostly black people. Like the women, they were still pretty, whatever. But especially to like slaves, they recognize the hypocrisy, and they're like, yeah, it is hypocritical, but it can't functionally work right now. And I think we get kind of idealistic nowadays, looking back of like, you got to stand on principle, man. You got to do the right thing, man. It's like, yeah, you got to stand on principle. You got to do the right thing. But we just fought a whole war, and a bunch of people just died so that we could have a country. So we have a country, and then you're going to get idealistic and blow it all up. Like, that's not what's in the best interest of the nation. Even though it's ugly and bad and nasty, that's not what's going to keep the nation together. And like this, the abolition process had kind of already started. I don't know if Britain had outlawed slaves at that point.
I think,
but they were pretty close to it.
Was Massachusetts already a free state at that point?
I don't know if it was. I can't remember if it was a free state. I do know that like
it was at least like very far in that direction.
It was, yes. They like Crispus Attucks was an abolitionist, and he died at the Boston Massacre.
Yeah.
So like that's where they hung out.
Right. And he's not a slave. He's clearly
he's a clearly free. He's a free black man. And I think even like the new territory that came up, I think it was the Ohio territory, was like a free, like you could not have slaves in the new territory that came up. So like it was definitely in the works.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, again, like with hindsight and being so far removed from it now, to be like, well, yeah, but they're still slaves and terrible things happen. Like the whole institution of slavery was just really bad and evil. Instead of say, we'll just hold on another 100 years to get it solved. Like it seems icky to say, but like if I don't know, man, if you tried to do it, then there were a lot more slaves in the South than in the North, and a lot more like outdoorsy guys in the South than in the North. So if you had a civil war between the North and the South in 1787, the South would have won, and it would have been a completely slave country. And I don't know if they would have let that go. So you know, you can play the war games of what would have happened, why they didn't, why they did.
Well, at least for Washington, he does put it in his will for his slaves to be like right at the end of his life, basically. And Martha, his wife, ends up freeing all their slaves like less than a year after he dies. And so you can already see like that progression already happening. And yeah, I guess I don't know if it was like his perspective was necessarily like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Versus like okay, I'm glad that we're at a point where we can really start reanalyzing our values and principles. And like, here's I'll put this in like, my slave should all be free, and like, you know, and so I mean, there was kind of like a weird thing where it's, I don't know all the semantics of it, because it's like he had slaves that were like just rented and stuff like that, and
or like slaves that I looked into that too. It's like slaves that were like, he had his own slaves from his own family, and then when he married Martha, those were like their family slaves that he inherited, and sort of like some sort of weird law where like you can't free slaves that you didn't like buy, or slaves through inheritance or something like that. I don't know. There was weird laws about it, because again, like slaves were like generational, so you pass things on, and I don't know. It was complicated. It wasn't just like I buy a pen and then I don't want this pen anymore. This is a free pen. Go live. It was like, no, like it's a very valuable resource, and it's like it's weird because like they kind of knew that they were human people, so like it wasn't like livestock. Like the trading and stuff was similar to that, but like they held them in a higher, even as slaves, held them in higher esteem and higher importance. So like you couldn't just, I don't know. It was a more complicated thing. So, and so I think I read somewhere that he could not have just with a stroke of a pen said all the slaves are free. Like all my slaves are now free. Like he couldn't have done that. There was some legal thing barring him from freeing all of his own slaves. So he willed them to Martha, and then Martha freed them. But then I don't know. It was a complicated. It's a complicated thing. It's not so
black and white.
Hey, part 2.
No, yeah, we can start to wrap up here for this one. But I think so. Yeah, he serves 2 terms. The reason why we have 2 terms now as like law is because like we've already said, he set the precedent of like being the 2-term president only, and it was kind of his idea of like, okay, no, like the nation needs to move on. Like they would have kept electing him, which he would have died in his 3rd term because he died very shortly after.
He got the sniffles. And
but still, they would have just kept electing him over and over until he died. And so his willingness to just like let go of the rope basically, and like, okay, no, like we need to move on. This shouldn't be a position of just like ultimate power where you have like one person over it. And so it's interesting, like that does follow suit. There's only one, I think FDR might have been the only,
and then they did the constitutional amendment to keep it a 2-term.
Right, yeah. So he was the only one that even served more than 2 terms. So either,
and that was that was kind of scandalous too. It's like everyone quits after 2.
Right, yeah. It was like an unwritten rule.
Yeah,
and it was all started because of Washington. So it's kind of interesting how, I mean, I know Theodore Roosevelt did try to run for a third term after.
Yeah.
But that was a whole.
It was like a non-consecutive third term.
It was kind of a weird thing.
And wasn't like his second term like there was a president, and then he died,
so
he came in.
He was vice president to William McKinley, who was assassinated, and so he was only elected one term.
Yeah,
but he served like 2 3/4.
Yeah. So and it was Teddy's.
Yeah, yeah. Come on, Teddy. Anyway, yeah. So he serves from 1789 to 1797, and fortunately dies in 1799. So only 2 years after he officially retires, when he finally gets to retire for real.
God knew that they would call him back for something, so they had to kill him. Well, God didn't kill him, but influenza did. No. He got pneumonia. I think he
it was a weird thing in his throat or something.
Yeah, he went riding and it was cold, and he was an old man. And he got.
I think he was like in his 60s. That's like pretty good, I think, for.
Yeah, I don't remember what the life expectancy in colonial times was. I think 60 was definitely up there.
Sure. Let me look.
But he had a lot of off-road miles on those 60 years. So it's not like he was like living. He wasn't like John Adams, who like lived to
67.
Okay. Yeah,
that's not terrible for just getting like a natural disease that no one knows how to fix.
Yeah, with people not washing their hands and having lived through like 2 massive wars. Yeah, if you gotta go.
Yeah. So,
did you know that Washington is the only flag in the U.S. that's green?
I did know that. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, we're from Washington State. If anyone's watching outside,
he's on our flag.
Yeah. If I don't know what the similarities is with.
I don't know. It just came to mind. It was just a cool thing.
I don't know why it's green. Maybe just the evergreen state.
Probably, but you can always pick it out of a crowd.
Yep. Anyway, we'll go ahead and.
I don't know.
We'll do the next part with the Constitution. So, if you're still with us, stick around. Constitution episode will be coming out next week. Thank you for tuning in.
Stay free.